Night shift horror stories. Real-life encounters that will keep you up. Hook 0 to 5 South. Imagine working alone in the dead of night, when the darkness is only broken by the hum of fluorescent lights. And then the unexplained happens. These are true horror stories from people who took the night shift, thinking it would be quiet, only to discover that something else was lurking in the shadows. Promised payoff by 025. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what happened to these 5 night shift workers and why they still can shake the chills. If you've ever worked late yourself, you might want to leave the lights on. Story 1. The Hospital Nurse. Our first story comes from a nurse who worked alone on the night shift at a small rural hospital. Most of her patients were asleep, and the halls were silent, until she heard footsteps coming from the far end of the corridor. She glanced at the security camera monitor. Nothing was there. The footsteps grew louder, and a patient call button suddenly lit up. When she checked, the room was empty and the bed was neatly made. As she stood there, every call button on the floor lit up in rapid succession. Then she saw it. A shadowy figure gliding past the nurse's station. It disappeared into a locked supply closet. Shaken, she called security. When they arrived, they found the supply closet still locked. Inside, everything was untouched, except for a dusty antique wheelchair that had been moved to the center of the room. Later, she learned that the hospital had been rebuilt over the old town morgue. Story 2. The Shopping Mall Guard. A security guard who patrolled a shopping mall after hours thought his job would be simple, until one night, when the elevators began moving on their own. He heard the ding of an arriving lift and watched as the doors slid open to reveal nobody. Thinking nothing of it, he headed for the service corridor. That's when he heard footsteps echoing his own pace. He spun around. The hallway was empty. He decided to check the CCTV room. On the monitors, he could see a shadow moving between stores, only visible through reflections in the glass. He radioed for backup, but his radio emitted only static. Suddenly, a dark silhouette appeared on the screen of the monitor labeled North Stairwell. Seconds later, the power flickered and the screen went black. When the lights came back on, all the mall's decorative mannequins were facing toward the cameras. He never patrolled alone again. Pattern interrupt approximately 40%. At this point, you might be thinking these are just isolated incidents, but research shows that thousands of night shift workers report seeing unexplained figures or hearing phantom noises each year. It's enough to make anyone question what lurks in empty buildings after dark. Our next story is even stranger. Story 3. The Convenience Store Encounter. A young woman working the graveyard shift at a convenience store saw a man approach the counter. Just before 3 a.m., he had a hood pulled low over his face and didn't speak when she greeted him. Instead, he slowly placed an old photograph on the counter. It was a picture of the very store she was standing in, taken decades earlier. In the background, she could make out someone who looked exactly like her, even wearing the same name tag. When she looked up, the man was gone. The automatic doors had not opened, and the security camera showed no sign of him entering or leaving. Later that night, Another customer told her that years ago a clerk had mysteriously disappeared from that same location on the night shift. The photo, it vanished before morning. Story 4. The Phantom Phone Call. Our fourth story involves a call center operator who took a job answering phones overnight. One quiet night, she received a call where the caller ID read internal. Thinking it was a supervisor, she answered. The line was dead, except for heavy breathing. She hung up and walked through the office to see who might be pranking her, only to find every cubicle empty. When she returned to her desk, the same number was calling. She let it ring and watched the phone log. The call was coming from her own workstation. She called the building's after-hours maintenance team, but their phone lines were down. When the morning shift arrived, the supervisor checked the phone system and discovered that all incoming lines had been disconnected because of scheduled maintenance, according to the call logs. The calls she received were never registered. Story 5. The Office Ghost. A janitor working nights in an old office building heard the familiar clatter of typing while he scrubbed the lobby floors. Curious, he walked upstairs to investigate. The typing grew louder as he approached an empty cubicle. On the screen, words were appearing in a blank document. Get out now. He froze. Behind him, a gust of cold air swept through the room, scattering papers and flipping the pages of a desk calendar. When he looked back at the screen, the message had changed. You have been warned. He fled, leaving his cart and supplies behind. The next day, the company announced that the building would be demolished due to structural issues. Issues that had been ignored for years. Conclusion: NCTA last 10s. These true accounts show that the night shift isn't always uneventful. Whether it's phantom footsteps in a hospital, moving mannequins in a mall, or a warning typed by unseen hands, something about the stillness of night invites the unknown. If these stories kept you on the edge of your seat, tap the like button and subscribe for more terrifying tales. And if you've ever experienced something you can't explain while working late, share your story in the comments. Your experience might be featured in a future video.